In exploring the concept of God's time in a culinary context, we delve into an intriguing intersection of spirituality and sensory experience. God's time is often a metaphorical period marked by patience, mindfulness, and the transcendence of ordinary schedules and routines. In culinary terms, this concept emphasizes the art of cooking and eating as a sacred, reflective practice, where time is not merely a constraint, but a crucial ingredient that enhances flavor and enjoyment. By allowing dishes to develop slowly and savoring every bite, meals can become a meditative experience that connects individuals to a deeper sense of presence and community, enhancing the way food is perceived and tasted. The significance of this concept in culinary arts is profound. It challenges the modern obsession with fast food and instant gratification, urging a return to slower, more purposeful ways of preparing and relishing food. This approach transforms eating from a mere act of consumption to a spiritual ritual. It influences how we appreciate the complexity of flavors, encouraging mindfulness about what we eat, how we prepare it, and who we share it with. For instance, the process of making sourdough bread reflects this idea. Allowing the dough to ferment over time not only develops richer flavors, but also requires the baker to engage in a slow, attentive process that can be both nourishing and spiritually fulfilling. Another example is the traditional Japanese tea ceremony, where each movement and moment is deliberate and imbued with meaning, heightening the sensory experience of tasting tea. Opinions in favor of this concept suggest that by integrating God's time into culinary practices, individuals can cultivate greater appreciation for food's spiritual dimensions, ultimately promoting well-being and community connectivity. However, challenges arise with the fast pace of contemporary life, where convenience often trumps patience. Critics may argue that not everyone can afford the luxury of time, making this approach inaccessible to some. Despite potential controversies, the philosophy of God's time in culinary arts is interconnected with various aspects of the main topic. It influences sustainable food practices by encouraging local, seasonal, and slow-growing ingredients. It supports mental health by alleviating stress through mindful eating. Moreover, it fosters communal bonds, as slowing down allows for shared meals that build relationships. By integrating these elements, the idea of God's time enriches our understanding and experience of food, urging us toward a more thoughtful and spiritually enriched culinary journey. The concept of historical perspectives on food and divine experiences involves exploring how various cultures and religions have perceived the relationship between food and spiritual practices throughout history. This point is significant as it provides context for how different societies have understood the influence of divine forces on the culinary experiences and choices of individuals, particularly during religious or sacred periods. This understanding of food and spirituality demonstrates its long-standing cultural and spiritual interconnections, which continue to shape religious practices today. One example of this intersection can be found in the ancient Hebrew tradition of manna, a substance described in biblical texts as miraculous food provided by God to the Israelites during their exodus from Egypt. This illustrates a direct link between divine intervention and sustenance, where food is not merely a physical necessity, but also a manifestation of divine benevolence and care. Another example is the Christian sacrament of communion, originating from the Last Supper, where bread and wine are not just symbolic, but are believed, in some traditions, to transform into the body and blood of Christ. This highlights the profound spiritual significance attributed to certain foods, underscoring their role in religious ritual and experience. Scholars and theologians have long discussed the nature of these divine experiences related to food, with many supporting the view that such practices highlight the sacredness of nourishment and its ability to connect the physical and the spiritual. However, some challenges and controversies arise from these traditions as well. For instance, the interpretation of food miracles or the divine nature of certain edibles can vary widely among different sects and denominations, leading to theological debates and differing viewpoints on what constitutes a divine experience. Furthermore, the perception of food during divine times often influences religious dietary practices, such as fasting, abstaining from certain foods, or the significance of feasting, each with its roots in historical context. For example, Ramadan in Islam includes fasting from dawn until sunset, which is intertwined with spiritual reflection and community. These practices show how historical perspectives continue to influence contemporary religious customs, emphasizing the timeless connection between food, the divine, and cultural identity. In sum, historical perspectives on food and divine experiences provide valuable insights into how societies intertwine the sacred and the mundane, with food serving as a medium for expressing and experiencing the divine. This concept highlights both the beauty and complexity of religious traditions, simultaneously reflecting diverse beliefs and shared human experiences. Sensory perception of food in religious rituals refers to the heightened experience of taste and other sensory attributes of food during spiritually significant occasions. This phenomenon is not merely about the physiological aspects of taste, but encompasses the spiritual and emotional dimensions that contribute to the overall perception. During religious rituals, food often becomes more than mere sustenance. It transforms into a vessel of spiritual experience, carrying meanings and emotions that amplify sensory perceptions. The significance of this concept lies in its ability to deepen the experience and understanding of religious practices. Food in rituals often symbolizes broader religious themes such as sacrifice, community, or divine presence. The sensory experience of consuming this food, the aroma, texture, and taste, can thereby enhance the devotee's connection to the divine. This connection underscores the profound ways in which the physical experience intertwines with spiritual engagement. Consider the Passover Seder in Judaism, where bitter herbs and matzah not only commemorate the exodus from Egypt, but also evoke a visceral response that ties participants to their history. Similarly, in Hindu temples, prasad, sacred food, offered to deities and subsequently shared among devotees, is believed to carry the deity's blessing. The taste of prasad is more than its physical flavor. It embodies divine grace. Support for this idea often comes from religious practitioners who describe experiences of transcendence and spiritual fulfillment triggered by sensory engagement with ritual food. Such engagements underscore food's role as a bridge between the material and the spiritual, promoting unity and devotion. Nonetheless, this concept isn't devoid of challenges or controversies. Some may argue that the sensory experience is subjective and can be influenced by personal expectations or prior conditioning, rather than considering it a solely divine interaction. Others might point out the potential commercialization of religious foods that could dilute their spiritual significance. Sensory perception of food in religious rituals connects with broader themes of how food transcends its nutritional value to become a centerpiece of cultural and spiritual identity. It influences how individuals perceive their role within a faith community and how they practice their spirituality. By understanding this, we gain insights into the profound link between our sensory experiences and spiritual life, revealing the powerful ways rituals shape our perception of the divine in everyday sustenance. The concept of theological interpretations of taste and spiritual nourishment invites us to explore the relationship between sensory experiences of food and spiritual enrichment as seen through a theological lens. This notion suggests that taste, beyond its physical and sensory dimensions, holds a deeper spiritual significance, often reflective of divine grace and communion with the divine. In the context of the main topic, understanding how food tastes during God's time, China is significant because it emphasizes the role of culinary experiences in spiritual practices and religious rituals. For many religious traditions, the act of eating is intertwined with acts of worship and thanksgiving, symbolizing sustenance not only for the body, but for the soul as well. It bridges earthly tastes with heavenly experiences, offering a unique perspective on how sensory pleasures can be a pathway to spiritual fulfillment. A prime example of this can be found in the Christian practice of the Eucharist, where believers partake in bread and wine in remembrance of Christ. The ritual is not just an act of physical nourishment, but also a profound spiritual experience that embodies divine communion. Another example is the significance of fasting in Islam during Ramadan, where the deprivation of taste during daylight is meant to heighten spiritual awareness and self-discipline, culminating in the breaking of the fast with both physical and spiritual renewal. Supporters of this idea argue that food, in its divine context, transcends its basic nutritional value, allowing individuals to connect with the divine and providing a sense of community and shared belief. However, challenges and controversies exist, particularly in secular interpretations of food that focus solely on its biological and cultural attributes without acknowledging any spiritual significance. Additionally, differing theological interpretations among various religions can result in contrasting views on how taste and food relate to spiritual practices. This exploration of taste and spiritual nourishment deeply influences other aspects of the main topic by providing a framework for understanding food as a divine gift, elevating every meal to a potential act of worship. It encourages us to reflect on the profound ways in which everyday experiences, such as eating, can serve as reminders of divine presence and engender a greater sense of gratitude and devotion. Ultimately, this perspective enriches our appreciation of food, transforming mundane acts into opportunities for spiritual reflection and growth.